You work now for the universal grid of abundance simply by your choice to be free, to release yourself from the old paradigm, the old matrix, and by recognizing that you have a need for restoration puts you in alignment with the abundance grid. And the great thing about being in alignment with the abundance grid is that it's a response to the universal asking for liberation. Because this is a universal asking, the universe can and will support you on this journey. As one who's anchoring abundance on the planet, it is our duty to embody abundance. Therefore, this journey will be unique to you because you are the only one that has intimate access to what you need for your own restoration. Only you can work your way out of your particular patterning of lack, which has to do with your upbringing, the programs that you've received, and your experiences. Our unique calling from the universe is a response for the collective asking for liberation. So as I said, the universe will support you. But this doesn't mean that you get everything you think you want to be happy. And that's where most people go wrong. We think if we fine-tune our manifestation skills, we can attract anything we want. And this is true. But what you quickly realize is often what we think we want is not really what brings abundance. And so this class is about actually tuning into the heart, into the deeper needs of the heart, and allowing them to matter. For most empaths, their biggest struggle is being able to identify and tune into our needs and meet them. Most of us have had a deep program that we're not allowed to meet our needs, or we've just simply been so tuned into other people that we've gotten our needs met through meeting other people's needs. So it's always one step removed. What's happening now is that we're reversing that. We're learning that as we have a pulse on the collective and as we're connected as empaths to the collective, when we change, when we are restored, when we allow our needs to be met, we upload that program, so to speak, into the collective consciousness. So the more of us that hold the codes and actually embody them rather than just talk about them, the more available the technology is to the greater expanse of humanity. So the real work here is the work of resonance training. We're changing our mindset from lack to abundance, and this requires a death of the old paradigm. So this also means it requires a death to our old way of being, the old us. We can't do things the way we did them in the lack paradigm, because if we do, we'll get what we got in the lack paradigm, which is lack. So know that as you go through this process, if you feel crazy at times, it's good, because we're not meant to think like 99% of the world thinks. We're thinking like 1% of the world thinks. We are the 1%. And it's important to embrace that, because even the fact that you're here in this class means that you have the luxury of thinking and making decisions for yourself. And that requires responsibility. We should take that responsibility seriously, meaning if we have the luxury to even be able to make a decision to take this class, make a decision to put our needs first, even have the space to be able to recognize that this is a need that we have, we are part of the 1%. And like I said, with great power comes great responsibility. So as we are shifting our mindset, we are anchoring in liberation in the storehouse of the collective, and we are holding a new kind of power. So anything that has ever been done that's great, any change that has ever been made, any innovation has required someone thinking different than everyone else. And usually those people are ridiculed by other people. People think they're crazy, but it takes those who dare and who are willing to think differently, to do things differently, to maybe be judged in order to break new territory and create new things and have new innovation. So just know that A, the universe supports you 100%. B, this is not about meeting your superfluous needs. These are about meeting your deeper needs. And that is why we will start with creating our lives from the inside out, not from what we think we need, but from what actually brings abundance. And 3, with great power comes great responsibility. So we are going to take our luxury, the luxury of thought, very seriously in this class. I want you to know that I've had clients that are millionaires or multimillionaires, but have a complete lack mentality. So it's important to remember that when we talk about abundance here, we're not necessarily talking about money, although money does play into it and will play into it, and we will get to that. But like I said, this is about the things that money can't buy, which most of the time when people conquer the world, the business world, the old matrix, that's when they start feeling like their deeper needs can matter. And it's amazing as someone who's worked with people who have mastered the money world and haven't mastered the inner wellness world, it's amazing to hear their perspective. So know that those things that when you tap into those deeper needs, you are tapping into a richness and a luxury that is rare on this planet. And it is being asked for. It is the deepest need and is the deeper asking. And like I said, even people who have astronomical wealth don't necessarily have inner wealth. So what you are doing as an empath, specifically as an empath entrepreneur, is using your gifts of being able to tune in to that inner life of the heart, the inner richness, to know what the human heart needs, which is restoration, which is true abundance, which is true luxury. By being able to tap into that, you are answering a direct call for abundance on this planet, for true abundance, the abundance of the heart. And you are in high demand right now, and you are highly, highly relevant. What I've found as I've worked with empaths is that many of us are called, but few answer the call because few are willing to go through the death process that it requires to step into full abundance, meaning the death of our old selves, the death of all of our survival mechanisms. And we go through this death with gratitude, because it is because of where we've been that we can be where we're going, that we can get where we're going, and all the insight that we'll have and all the things that you'll teach from, the platform in which you will offer your gifts from, comes directly from the wisdom that you've gained from the lack paradigm, from shifting from the lack paradigm to the abundance paradigm, and all that stuff in between. That's going to be your gold. That's going to be your value, how you uniquely freed yourself. So the number one objective of this class is liberation and restoration. And it is important that you know, first and foremost, that that is your motivation, because everything changes when we're coming at it from that perspective. So there's a couple things that I want to make sure you do before you even go any further. One is make sure you have a notebook for this class and write down what your motivation and intention is for the class. You should have already done this from last week, but make sure that's done. And 2, make sure you watch the video that I posted. I'll post it in the group. I don't know if I actually posted it in the group, but it was a video that I posted publicly, and I talked about this class in the video, but it's the 7 laws for astronomical abundance. In that video, I outline the laws, or the rules, so to speak, of the abundance paradigm. And it's important that you know those well, because we are going to navigate everything based on those rules. So this week is all about tuning into our needs and finding our highest leverage points for change. And what I mean by leverage points are where are the areas that you can shift that will bring the greatest amount of change in your life. Now, one of the ways to navigate how well you're doing in this class, or how well you're doing in general, is by how simple or complicated you're making things. When things are simple, when we're tuning into spirit, when we are clear about our needs and without guilt or shame in meeting our needs, things are very, very clear and very, very simple. When we are allowing our thoughts to rule us and overly identifying with every thought or emotion that comes up, things get much more complicated. Nothing can be simple. Once we think one thing, we have to think of 55 other different things, and think and think and think and process and process and process. And while you can get some valuable information out of that, mostly over processing and over complicating things simply drains our energy, and we end up empty and haven't and not moving forward at all. And so I tend to be a very complicated person, and one of my intentions and goals for this class is to keep things much more simple whilst also covering the complexity of what we're talking about. So know that answers that come from inspiration are clear and they are simple. And use those words, simplicity and clarity, to help navigate this material and these next 6 weeks. The entire point of the abundance matrix is to no longer bypass our hearts or our bodies or our minds. It's allowing all aspects of us to matter and knowing that if we are bypassing one of those aspects, we are not in fellowship with ourselves, and therefore we will always feel like we are lacking. So what do you need to have your sensitivities or your empathic abilities work for you rather than drain you? Most empaths, like I said in the previous slide, have a poor self-care routine. They'll put everyone else first and then be drained and empty and then feel resentment towards everyone around them for their feeling drained and empty, and often passive aggressive. That is all part of lack, because it at its core level is some sort of belief that we can't get our needs met unless we manipulate others. So it's really important to ask yourself, to begin tuning in to this week, what are your deeper needs? What do you need to support your gifts, your unique gifts, in order to be successful? And what I mean by successful is abundant, is overflowing, is full inside, whole, have to feel like you're whole. It doesn't mean being happy all the time or feeling happy all the time, but it does mean knowing that you have the tools to shift when you are feeling those lower vibrations. So just the way that an artist will cater to their individual sort of eccentric needs, it is just as important that you understand what your eccentric needs are to help your gifts thrive. Because your gifts, your empathic abilities, are your currency. It's your value. Because if most of us have spent our life honing these gifts. And even if we've gone about it in the lack paradigm, it means that we have the codes for the exact other side of it. And the fact that we know the lack side so well will also help us navigate the abundance, because we know what we don't want. We know what it feels like to not take care of ourselves. We don't have to be convinced anymore of how broken that paradigm is, especially for the human heart. And as we have a pulse on the collective, when we meet our needs and when we start being able to tune in, like I said, we carry that frequency for the planet. We help set humanity free. So remember, it's important to cater to your needs and to do this without guilt or apology. When you do this, your life is not only much more beneficial, but your relationships and everything about what you experience will feel more abundant. Now, it's important to remember, like I said in the previous slide, part of shifting to abundance is going through a death. And it is not easy to die, and the ego will cling onto its old story, especially when those stories have pain around them, and we've used those stories to justify our behavior or justify why we are the way we are, justify why we're in lack. And it matters, those experiences and those stories, but it also is important that we overcome them if we truly want to be free. So just know that while these concepts may hopefully seem simple and clear, it doesn't mean it's necessarily easy. It's all about focus, and it's all about how well we can control our thoughts and shift when we need to, and not just allow the old programs, the old thought processes to take over. So for this week's exercise, I want you to imagine that you have your ideal job. Now, when I say the word job, what I really mean is imagine that you are completely supported by the universe to do nothing except for be you, as uniquely you as you can possibly be, because it is your uniqueness that is your value. It's where you are unlike anyone else, where you have gifts to offer people. Where you're like other people, there's a billion other people like you, but where you are unique is what the world is asking for. So imagine that you were able to just be uniquely you and you were well compensated for it. Imagine that your employer, so to speak, which is you, is your lover. Imagine that you have the type of relationship with the universe that feels like a lover paradigm, that you are loving from your heart and it's loving you back from your heart, and you're deeply nurturing the matrix of abundance, and it's deeply nurturing you. So take some time to think about this. What would it feel like? What would you do on a daily basis if you were totally free in that way to just be you and to just give yourself what you need and just to create from a space of inspiration, that you only acted from a space of inspiration? What would that feel like? And then take some time to write down what would your ideal job be like if you were to actually break it down. So the first part is just thinking of what would it feel like to have that kind of relationship with the universe in which you fully trusted it and you knew that the matrix was set up to support you and to love you and to nurture you, your deeper needs. And then take some time to imagine what would it look like physically speaking. So an example for me would be me being 100% me. What it would look like in a physical reality is making $15,000 a month at least, working only 3 days a week max, and working, quote unquote, just means giving my unique talent to the world, like offering it, because we get compensated by being of value, by giving our talents or investing our talents in the matrix. That's how we stay connected to the grid, is by investing in it. Most of us have been so hurt by the lack matrix that we kind of have disassociated with it. And some of you, even on the Facebook page, used really strong words like hating society and hating the matrix, and which is totally understandable. So imagine what it would be like if you loved it. And again, when we're connected to it, we invest in it. So there's always going to be something that we give. So for me, like I said, I would be making at least minimum $15,000 a month. Maximum, I would be working only 3 days a week and only maybe 3 hours per day. And three, by the way, is a powerful number of manifestations. I'm using that very strategically. And in my free time, I would be using my artistic side in any way that I want. I would be as eccentric as I wanted to be. So what would it feel like to you? Those are just very simple, practical ways that it could come through. But first and foremost, what would it feel like? And I recommend spending at least 5 minutes in a meditation where you just imagine what it would feel like. Just tune into the feeling. Abraham Hicks says if you tune into something for longer than 17 seconds, it gains momentum, and it becomes more of closer to a manifested reality for you. So it's important when I say spend 5 minutes, that's quite a bit of time to be able to tune in to what that kind of feeling would be like without getting triggered into something like, oh, I couldn't have that though, or oh, it's not possible, or I'm not worth it, or I'm not worthy, any of those things. And notice if those things do come up. Just take note and then shift your focus back to the feeling of what it would be like to truly love and trust and invest in the matrix. Remember, we are being called to invest in the abundance matrix. So this is a different matrix that we're investing in. And then write down what would it look like practically for you. And don't be shy. Don't be modest. Be abundant in your thinking. What would it truly feel like? What would make you truly feel free? When I just had a friend visiting recently, and she said that she's also an empath, and she said that she felt specifically like the universe called her, told her only work 3 days a week. And that has definitely resonated with me as well. And then she said she always makes sure every week that she schedules in a bed day. In other words, at least one day a week where she doesn't get out of bed if she doesn't want to. She just does absolutely nothing. Now, this is really important when you're an empath for recharging. And then she schedules one day a week for a spa day. Whether she actually goes to a spa or not, it's not the point. It's the point of taking care of yourself. So she may take a hot Epsom salt bath with essential oils and do her nails and give herself a massage or self-pleasure or whatever it is, but just a day where she's fully nurturing and giving to herself. And I loved that example because she also works with clients. She has her own business. and she's found a way that works for her. Those are her needs. So what are your needs? What would it look like? How would your day-to-day look like? Think really on self-care. What are those deeper needs? What would make you feel really cared for and revived? So remember, when you're actually taking care of yourself, when we're actually investing, I should say, in our own self-care, our vibration raises. And when our vibration raises, we don't really have to do any work. The vibration does the work for us. We just hold the space. So part of what we're learning to do as we shift from lack into abundance is we're learning to embody abundance. And the more we embody it, the more it becomes our reality. This is resonance training. This is ultimately what we're doing. So this exercise is actually really important because you're establishing what the energy signature is of your abundance. And the more familiar you get with that energy signature of your unique way of feeling abundant, the more it'll be easier for you to tune into it. So remember, don't be modest. What would absolutely revive your soul? And then ask yourself, what needs can you meet right now that would make the biggest difference in your overall well-being? What needs can you meet right now? Needs that you can actually meet. Like think about getting more sleep or completely unplugging at least once a week from everyone and everything, or saying no. This is a big one for empaths, saying no to people. Remember, when we're in lack, usually one of our biggest issues is that we have resentment towards the rest of the world because we feel like we are unable to meet our needs, that we're unable to matter. And so when we shift into the abundance paradigm, we have to allow that belief to dissolve. We have to believe that we matter and that we can meet our needs. And this means letting everyone else off the hook. It's no one else's responsibility to meet your needs but you. You can ask for help, but it's important that you learn that you can ask for help. You can ask for the universe to give you exactly what you need, but first you have to be aware of what you need. So this exercise is all about tuning in and being aware of what you actually need. So for me, here's a few needs that I've throughout this process realized that if I meet, it makes the biggest difference. One is the unplugging at least once a week, where I unplug 100% from everyone and everything, where I don't connect at all, not even to the internet. This is crucial. Two, being in nature on a regular basis completely revives me. And I've found that for me uniquely, and I think this is probably true for a lot of people, but for my empathic abilities, sometimes it seems like it's only nature that can clear me, that can clear my energy. So even if it's as little as making sure I go outside every day and put my bare feet on the ground makes a huge difference. Things we don't really think about, but that actually shift things in a big way. I also realized that I need to be able to cry on a regular basis. I feel a lot of people, and because I work with clients, I hear a lot of stories and I can feel it deeply within me. I hold it within me. And when I was in the lack paradigm, or sometimes I still shift in and out of it, I had a belief that crying was somehow wrong. Because think about it, when you cry, what is the first thing that someone asks you usually? What's wrong? And even that sentence, what's wrong, is implying that there's something wrong with crying. And so simply by the wording, my brain associated crying with something being wrong. And so rather than it being something that's nurturing and good for me, I associated it as, oh, there must be something wrong. I need to fix it. Now I've realized there's nothing wrong at all. In fact, it's everything right. When I cry, I feel like I'm free. I feel like I release. I feel like it's a catharsis. And so now I know it's just something that I allow whenever I want, whenever I need to cry, I allow myself to cry. So those are just some of the simplest needs that I've allowed myself when I've tuned into my needs that I've allowed myself to have. The other need is because I mentor other people, I realized I needed space. I needed someone that I could talk to on a regular basis. And when I made the decision to go back to therapy, of course, my first thought was, which usually when we're giving to ourselves, our first thought is, are we worthy of it and can we afford it? And I realized as soon as I isolated and understood this is an actual need I have, it's an investment in my business, it's an investment in my life, I manifested the money for it. And I have been going every week since I made that decision. And it's been like a few months now, maybe 4 months, 5 months. And I have never once not had the money to go. I have always manifested money to go to therapy, and therapy is expensive. So it's amazing what happens when we allow ourselves to know that our needs matter and know that it's an investment in who we are. And the payoff is so much greater on the other end that it just attracts more abundance. And so one of the biggest things I've found for empaths, and not just empaths, but anyone in the lack paradigm, is that the hesitancy to spend any money at all, because we are in the mindset of we never have enough. There's never enough. But the problem with that is if you're not willing to invest in yourself, you never get anything either. So one of the big shifts that this class is going to require is for you to start allowing yourself to matter and allowing your needs to matter and investing in yourself. The fact that you paid for this class shows that you already feel like it's important to invest in yourself. But I want to push that even further. So think about what your ideal job would be. How would it feel, first and foremost, for you to be in love with the universe, for you to work for the universe? Remember what I said in the beginning of this video. You work for the universe now. And specifically, you work for the abundance paradigm. It is your employer. And the laws of the abundance paradigm, as stated in that video, always work. And they are consistent across the board. It's just a matter of shifting the matrix in our mind. So how would it feel to you to be in love with the matrix, to instead of not liking it, instead of not trusting it, to actually love it, to invest in it, to have faith in it and faith in yourself? What are some of the deeper needs that you have that if you met right now would make the biggest difference in your life? And where are you feeling like you don't have enough? And that's one of the ways to figure out where you may be lacking or what your biggest need is right now. Look at where you're lacking. Look at where you feel the most lack, and that will help lead you to where you need the biggest change or the biggest shift. So I would love to hear how this exercise goes for you. On Wednesday, I'll be posting again, and I'll give us a second part to the exercise and also share a little bit more about my experience, because I'm going to be implementing some new needs and a new routine into this. So once we've established what our needs are, next week we're going to be towards the end of this week on Wednesday, I'm going to give us tools to start creating a schedule, a ritual, so to speak, our own individualized matrix grid to actually meet our needs. So just like a daily routine. And I'll go more into that on Wednesday. So right now, just be as aware as you possibly can of your needs.